great honor and a great privilege to be here today. Why is that? Why is it that in today's climate, when we see all of these movements, the Me Too campaign, the Claim Yourself campaign, the Time Is Up campaign, that we need more and more organizations like Nisa. I met Nisa, I think it was over a year ago now, at a women's event, entrepreneurship, and I saw their booth and their stall, and I went up to them and I said, hey, what are you doing? And they said that they provide the support that Muslim women need in their most dire time. And I understand that. I understand that because I've been a woman in dire need. I understand that because I know women who have been in dire need. Who do you turn to when the time is not in your favor? Who do you turn to? Where do you go? Imagine today if you, in your situation, became homeless, that you had no home to go to. Would you have a family or friends or somebody to turn to? It's organizations like Nisa that really provide the support and the help that women need in their desperate times. So I really commend you, the organization, for the work that you do in providing that support. A few months ago, I was in Ottawa and I had the opportunity to visit a homeless shelter, a shelter for abused women in Ottawa. And I got to meet some of these women who were with their very, very young children and were fleeing homes, were fleeing violence. And these children, the impact that abuse has on the children is devastating. And it is these children and their moms that we really must be able to provide support to as a community. It is these children that are going to grow up and are either going to mimic the behaviors that they saw in their early childhood, or they're going to fight against what they saw in their childhood. And that choice is really up to us. It's really up to us. Do we provide that support to these little children? Or do we let them make up their own minds and decide for themselves if they want to be an abuser having been an abused? And that is why it is imperative that we support organizations like Nisa. Our federal government this year has announced over $2 million for organizations that provide support to those women that have faced violence, to those organizations that work towards empowering women to be independent, to escape those situations which hurt them. We are willing and able to partner with organizations like Nisa. And I encourage all of you to really think about what abuse does, not just to an individual, but to a family. And I encourage all of you to provide the support that organizations like Nisa need in order to provide the support for our families, for the support of our individual people that live here in Canada. Women's abuse is nothing new. It is something that we have seen no matter where we are in the world. But it is something that we can all do something for by raising awareness, by ending the stigma that is associated with it, by talking to each other, by seeing and noticing those people around you that may or may not be facing it. by volunteering for organizations. And I commend all of you for being here today because I know that all of you are supportive. And I'm preaching to the choir today, which is great. So if every single one of you left here today and spoke to one more person about the stigma associated with women abuse, or about the need to provide support to organizations that help those that are suffering from abuse, I can tell you that organizations like Nisa will float. And to make my final plug, my name is Ikra Khalid and I'm the Member of Parliament in Mississauga, Erin Mills, and happy to help in any of your federal issues. Please do come by my office. We are located at 3100 Ridgeway Drive. If you Google me, you'll find me. Our doors are always open and we welcome you and we're happy to help you. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a fantastic evening. I do have a small token of appreciation on behalf of our Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, to the executive of Nisa. If I could please call you up on stage to receive this. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your support and have yourselves a great evening.
Thank you so much, Ikra. It's wonderful to have your support. Okay, on to our keynote speaker. I know you guys are really hungry right now, and everybody's like, where is Sister Yasmin? Where is she? She's here! Woo! Okay. Sister Yasmin Mujahid received her bachelor's degree in psychology and her master's in journalism and mass communications from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Currently, she is an instructor at the Al-Maghrib Institute, a writer for Huffington Post, an international speaker and author, focusing most of her work on spiritual and personal development. Yasmin recently released her book, Reclaim Your Heart, which will be available for purchase and signing after her talk. Get it signed. Here she is, Yasmin Mujahid.
Assalamu alaikum. So, just a small correction. My recent book is actually Love and Happiness, but I have both available. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I want to begin by saying that Toronto's become somewhat of a second home to me. I'm here like every month. And there's this other thing that happens whenever I'm in Toronto. I get really sick, but inshallah I'll get over it. I'm very, very happy to be here because I truly, deeply believe in this cause. I met Sister Tanweer many years ago and she told me about Nisa. And I really, from day one, I supported this initiative. And what I want to do today is explain to you why it is that I support this initiative and why supporting this initiative is more to do with you than it is those who you are actually helping. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Most fundraisers, the people will stand up at the podium and they will explain to you how much you're helping others, right? They'll tell you that this money is going to go to this person and it's going to do this for this person and the argument that's made to you is do this, support this cause, and you will help all of these other people, right? I'm actually going to tell you something completely different. Yes, you are helping other people tremendously when you support causes like this. But I'm going to come at it in a little bit of a different way. And that is that I'm going to tell you that, in fact, when you help causes like this, you're helping yourself. And that might seem strange, but what do I have to do with it? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not me, I'm helping them. You're actually helping yourself first and helping others second, which seems strange. And I'm going to tell you why. So I'm going to tell you why from two perspectives. One perspective is the Islamic perspective. What does Allah and His Messenger say about this type of service? But I'm also going to go at it from a completely different perspective, which is just a secular psychology perspective. Now, let me begin there. So nowadays in psychology, they have moved away from the typical traditional psychology, which used to look at what's wrong with a person, basically abnormal psychology type, yeah? So what you would do is you would look at, okay, what can go wrong with a person? There's this disorder, that disorder, here are the symptoms, and here are the drugs or the treatments. That's the sort of traditional psychology. The new wave of psychology is taking a different approach. The new wave of psychology is something called positive psychology. And what they're doing now, the big, craze now in research, is to not look anymore at what goes wrong, but instead, let's stop talking about disorders for a second, and let's actually just research happiness. Let's talk about how to help people live more fulfilling lives. How can we increase well-being? How can we allow people to flourish? So this is a term that they use, flourishing. Essentially, how can we make people's lives better? Everyone wants to be happy, right? It's something that no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, no matter where you come from, everyone has this in common, that we are motivated towards happiness, am I right? We as human beings, Christian, Jew, agnostic, atheist, Muslim, rich, poor, everyone is motivated towards happiness. And everyone is motivated to avoid suffering, regardless of your beliefs, regardless of where you came from. This is just human nature. So here's what they find about happiness. Here's the thing, is that a lot of our happiness level, they found, is sort of set. And a big portion of it is actually, they call it like a baseline, and it's kind of set by genetics. But here's the good news. Only about 50% can you blame your parents for. All right? Or thank your parents. Only about 50%. What does that leave? Well, they say about 10% has to do with basic needs, safety, stuff like that, right? So what does that leave us with, everyone? About 40%, which is entirely in your hands, okay? That's powerful. Essentially, what it means is, regardless of your genetics, regardless of even your situation generally, there's about 40% that you have somewhat of control over in your own happiness. So that's pretty good news, yeah? You guys are hungry? Yeah, right? Okay. Wasn't a rhetorical question. Okay, so yeah, it's good news. So now the question is, now all of this research is going into, well, what can we do with that 40%? What can we do? Who doesn't want to be happy, right? Can I tell you one of the most amazing findings that they came up with? Is that essentially it's very difficult, in general, to increase your baseline happiness. Here's what they find. They find that people hang around this baseline, and when something really cool happens in their life, they get married, they have a child, they get a raise, they get a promotion, they win the lottery, they get a spike in that happiness, but they find that it is quite temporary. Okay? That spike is very temporary, and then very soon after this amazing event, people go back to their baseline. That's kind of where you live. Okay? Similarly, when something really tragic happens, they also find, generally, that people have a dip, but essentially human beings are more or less resilient, and they go back to where? Their baseline, with a few exceptions. Now, one of the exceptions with the dip is the loss of a child. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children. They have found that it's very difficult for people to bounce back from that. Now, what do we want to talk about? Let's talk about this top part of this spike in happiness. How can we increase that baseline? Well, they found that it's quite difficult. Everything tends to be quite short-lived, spikes, and then we return. But you know what they did find? They found that one of the most powerful and really one of the only ways to increase the entire baseline of your happiness is to serve others. It's just the service to others. That act itself has been found to be one of the only and most reliable and most powerful ways to just be happier yourself. So now we're not talking about making another person happier at this point. That you yourself become happier when you serve others. That's powerful. So Allah has designed it that one of the most satisfying things that you can do in your life is to be at the service of others. There must be a reason for that. And I'm going to get to that. But I'll give you a clue. It's because Allah wants us to do it. So He makes it feel good, essentially. See, if you want someone to do something, you give them rewards, right? Now, there's external rewards, and then there's internal rewards. Allah has designed external rewards, yes, in this life and the next. I'll talk about those. But He's also designed internal or intrinsic rewards, where you actually feel good. They tell you that money doesn't buy happiness, right? Still hungry? Right? Okay, that's also a lie. I also found that to be untrue in research. Money buys happiness, but only when spent on others. Isn't that deep? They found in studies that when you spend on yourself, in other words, splurge, right? Indulge yourself, it doesn't increase your happiness. But when you spend on others, it does. And they found that this is so powerful that even just thinking about a time that you spent on others will make you happier. They did a study in which they took 4 groups of people. One group, they assigned them to indulge themselves. Meaning, you know what, spend a week, just splurge on you, on yourself, okay? This is basically what society tells us is going to make us happy, right? By buying more stuff for you, by upgrading your laptop or your car or your wife, right? That this is what's going to make you happy. But look what happened. They took that one group and told them, you know what? Indulge yourself. Then they took the second group and they said, serve others. And they told the second group, serve others at an individual level. And then they took a third group and said, serve but at a community level. And the fourth group was just a control group. They just kept track of what they were doing. And you know what they found? They found that in this study, no group had an increase in happiness except the 2 that did service to others. Interestingly, the ones who were splurging on themselves, they never had an increase in happiness. Now, right now, I haven't been talking about Islam here. I'm talking simply about human nature, just about happiness, just happiness. And they found, again, these are secular studies, that those who served others, both in the individual and the collective, they had an increase in happiness, and none of the other groups did. And the increase was so powerful that it even lasted long after the study. That's the power of service. They find that one of the most effective ways to pull yourself up when you're down is to help another person when they're down. It's actually one of the most effective treatments for depression, is to be in the service of others, volunteerism, help another person in need. And again, these are studies that have nothing to do with our deen. These are not Islamic studies. These are just secular psychology studies. But now the question becomes, what does Allah and His Messenger say about this? What does Allah and His Messenger say about service? I'll tell you one thing before I get into detail. When you read, if you do a survey of the Quran and of the Hadith, you're going to find that there's one principle that goes across the board. All right? One underlying principle that you will find across the text, Hadith and Quran. And it goes like this. How many of you know the golden rule? Anyone? The golden rule is do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Yeah? Everyone know that, yeah? You may not have known it's called the golden rule, but you know it. Now, what does the Quran have as an underlying principle? What does the Hadith have as an underlying principle? It's a more powerful rule than the golden rule. So I call it the platinum rule, all right? It goes like this. Do unto others as you want God to do unto you. That's powerful. That's powerful. Because another person, that's great and all, but they're just the creation, right? So they're limited, right? I want generosity from people, so I'm generous. Okay, great. But the generosity of a human isn't like the generosity of the Lord of the universe. You with me? So there's an even higher rule, which is do unto others as you would like God, owner of the heavens and the earth, to do unto you. How you treat others becomes how God treats you. And that is the platinum rule. And if people live by that, then their lives are transformed. Again, what am I saying right now? I'm saying that when you are serving others, you're helping them, but you're actually helping yourself first. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He continues to help the slave so long as the slave continues to help others. So let me ask you this. Imagine having, forget like help from a superpower army or, a superpower country. How much would you want the help of the Lord of the universe? See, if you have the help of God, then nothing can defeat you. If you have the provision of God, then you can never become poor. Do you understand? And this is a promise made by Allah that if you help other people, Allah will help you. Now here's the thing about Allah's help and Allah's generosity. Allah isn't going to give as much as you give, right? Because Allah is the infinitely gracious and the infinitely generous and the infinitely merciful. So if you give one, He gives infinity. You get it? Now think about this. There's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says that if you show mercy to those on the earth, Allah will show mercy to you. Another narration that says that he or she who does not show mercy to others will not be shown mercy by God. We know the famous story of the woman who lived an immoral life. She was a prostitute. And yet we are told that she was forgiven because of what? She gave water to what? Not even a human being. Not a believer. A dog. A dog. So see, her mercy for the creation, even though it wasn't even a human, got her the mercy of God. Do you understand? Even though the action itself was so small, but because of that action, she was forgiven from something so big. And we see the other case of the woman who was punished. Why? Because she was abusive to a cat. Again, not even a human being. But the way that they treat the creation becomes a reflection of how God treats us. One of the famous stories we're told about in the Quran. How many of you guys know the story of Aisha radiallahu anha when she was accused of being unjust? You all know this story. She was accused and this slander was being spread about her. And her father, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, found out that one of the people spreading the rumor about his own daughter was a relative. Can you imagine that? And not just any relative, but a relative who Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was financially supporting. Can you imagine? What would you do? Right? What would you do? So what does Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu do? He doesn't go out and get a hitman and try to get revenge. All he does is stop the financial support. That's it. Right? That's the least of what we would do, right? Still hungry? So he stops the financial support. You know what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals an ayah in the Quran and addresses Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu in this circumstance. فَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Look at the divine structure here, the divine logic of this ayah. He is being told to pardon and overlook. But why? See, when we don't forgive people, what's our reasoning? They don't deserve our forgiveness, right? Right? But he doesn't deserve, she doesn't deserve. Why should I forgive? Do you think this dude deserved? You know, we're not told that he came and apologized and tried to make up for it and grovel. No. Allah says something very important. He says, let them pardon and overlook. And here is the point I want you to focus on. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Do you not love for Allah to forgive you? Do you see that platinum principle? Abu Bakr is being told, radiallahu anhu, forgive, let it go, pardon. Why? Not because the dude deserves your forgiveness. Not because he apologized. Actually, the guy has nothing to do with it. It's about Abu Bakr and Allah. You guys understand it? And so it is a completely different way of dealing with people. You deal with people not as you expect them to deal back with you. You deal with people as you expect Allah to deal back with you. And so he's being told to pardon and overlook. And he's being asked, do you not love for Allah to forgive you? That is why you should be good to people. That is why you should be merciful to people. And so what does Abu Bakr do? Not only does he continue that financial support, they say he increased it. Do you see what Abu Bakr realized? And I really want to emphasize this point. We oftentimes look at human beings sometimes as like just a nuisance in our path. You know what I'm saying? Even when people try to take the spiritual path, I want to get closer to Allah, I don't care about people. You know what I mean? This attitude. Well, you know what's very interesting is that when you really study the spiritual path, if you really study how to get close to Allah, you find that human beings are one of the fastest ways to Allah. You want to know why? By how you treat them. Simple as that. You want a shortcut to God? Treat people well. You want a shortcut to God? Serve others. Help someone who's in need. That's a shortcut to God. You want a shortcut to God's generosity? Be generous with another human being. Do you understand? You want a shortcut to risk. Who doesn't want risk? What's risk? Provision, right? Provision encapsulates everything, right? Money, children, health. These are all provisions, guys. And they all come from God. They all come from Allah. We want these things, right? Do you know the fastest way to get these things? Is to be good to others. And I can give you text upon text proving that. But let me just tell you one right now. There's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says that the most beloved person to Allah. Now I'm going to pause there for a second. When I tell you who is the most beloved person to Allah, many of you are going to bring to mind someone who lives in the masjid, basically, right? Someone who has the short pants and the big beard and that kind of thing, and just prays and fasts all the time in the masjid. Yes or no? You're still hungry, but yes or no? Okay. You know what the hadith says? So powerful. The hadith says that the most beloved person to Allah is the one who benefits others the most. The one who benefits others the most. And then it goes on to say that the most beloved action to Allah is for you to see someone in need and you help them. For you to remove a distress from another person. That's actually one of the best forms of worship. Can I tell you what comes next? Gonna blow your mind. The Prophet ﷺ Now keep in mind, he is standing in the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina. Okay? He says, it is more beloved to me to help my brother in need than to stay in i'tikaf in this masjid for a month. I'm just going to repeat that, just to put this into context. Masjid al-Nabawi, like he's not standing in the masjid of Toronto or masjid down in California. He's standing in the masjid where one prayer is like better than 1,000 in another masjid. The place that we spend our entire life saving up just to go once. And he says this, he says, it is more beloved to me to help my brother in need than to be in seclusion or i'tikaf in this masjid for a month. Doesn't that put things into perspective? I think we've missed the plot. I think we've missed the point. Unfortunately, I do believe this. We as a community have become so obsessed with rituals. So obsessed with rituals. Yes, the rituals are absolutely necessary. You gotta pray, you gotta fast, you gotta give your zakat, you gotta do these things. Even within the rituals, there's service, by the way. Zakat is actually enforced. It's a fund to serve others. Right? And on top of that, you have sadaqah. But look at this. We have become so obsessed with rituals and we've missed the bigger picture. Can I give you an example? We will fight tooth and nail and hurt people and be rude to people and scream the house down or the masjid down about moon sighting and Zabi Hamid. Isn't it true? But we will actually hurt others in the process of fighting about something that there's difference of opinion about it. And that's because we've lost the plot. We've missed the most important objective of our deen. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Indeed, I was sent to perfect beautiful manners. Check that out. The Prophet ﷺ saying, indeed, I was sent to perfect beautiful manners, to perfect how we are treating each other, not to have you eat Zabi Hamid, not to fight about moon sighting. You understand? And so we've missed the point. We've missed, as they say, the forest, not even for the trees, for the leaf. You know? Like we focus on one leaf and we miss the forest. The reality is that the thing that is most beloved to Allah is how we treat other people. And one of the things that angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most is harming another person. To be bad with another person in how you treat others. Let me tell you this. The Prophet ﷺ, said, he asked his companions, who's the poor person? So they said, naturally, the one who has no money or has little money. And he replied and said, no, the poor person is the one who has all the rituals, right? The one who prays, fasts, does their finishing of the Quran, however many, does all these rituals. But they have abused people. They have been unkind to people. They have hurt people. They've been rude to people. And so why does this person become poor? Because on the day of judgment, that person that you hurt, that you were not good to, will come and take all the reward of those rituals until you become falis, as I say, completely penniless of good deeds. You see? So I feel like we've lost the focus. If you want a shortcut to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is actually through the service of others. It is actually through giving to others, supporting others, sadaqah. And I'm going to just sort of wrap it up with this before I talk a little bit specifically about what Nisa Helpline is doing, the work that it's doing, and why it's so necessary. But one thing that really struck me, is that there's an ayah in the Quran in which Allah talks about the souls, when they're leaving the body. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and He takes the soul from the body, we know that a lot of people are gonna be like, no, send me back, right? No, give me more time, like that kind of attitude, because they're not prepared. But you know what really struck me? Is that in this ayah, the first thing that they say, so they say, no, let me go back so that I can, and you know what the first thing that people will say when they're dying and they want to go back? So I can give sadaqah. That blew my mind because it shows how heavy sadaqah will be on the Day of Judgment. That a person will want to come back to this life, and the first thing they say they want to do, just let me go back so that I can give sadaqah. That's how powerful and how heavy it will be in the scales with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is to give to others. And let me tell you this, anyone who comes to me and is like, you know what, I'm having financial problems. What should I do? Do you know my first advice to them? Give sadaqah. That seems a little counterintuitive, right? Wait a minute, but I'm having financial problems and you're telling me to give? Yeah. Do you want to know why? Because there's a very powerful formula that Allah has designed. That when you give for the sake of Allah, you actually grow your money. It is powerful. If you're actually having a problem with your rizq, having difficulty conceiving, having a child, having difficulty with your health, having difficulty with your finances or your wealth, one of the best things you can do is to give sadaqah, is to give charity. Because what happens when you give charity is you get back, but multifold. It's like an investment. See, if I ask a little kid, right? I ask a 5-year-old, hey, give me all your allowance, right? Give me all your $10 allowance. And don't worry, I'm going to invest it for you. I'm going to put it in an investment, and you're going to get something back. What's that little kid going to think? No way, I'm not going to let go of my $10. Because they think that to give to an they don't understand the concept of investment. To them, it looks like losing that money. You understand? When you come to an adult, and you tell them about the concept of investment, they understand that you give a portion, right? What is investment, folks? What does it mean? When you're investing in a business, what do you have to do? You have to put down money, right? You have to invest, you have to give money, and what happens as a result? Anyone? You get back, but you don't get back what you gave, you get back multifold, right? That's the concept of investment. We understand that as adults, but a child doesn't get that. Now, unfortunately, spiritually, you guys know where I'm going with this? Spiritually, many of us have the understanding of a child when it comes to sadaqah. We think that the money we are giving is being lost. Just like that kid, if I took his allowance, he's going to think he lost it. He doesn't understand investment. But the reality is, any money that you give for the sake of Allah is being invested. It's an investment. And you're going to get it back multifold. Now, the difference between my example and this is that with any investment, there is the chance of loss. Not in the investment with Allah's bank. There's no chance of loss. And the multifold isn't like times 2 or 3. It's up to infinity. Do you guys understand what that means? It could be like the amount of money that you give to a cause like this could be what enters you into Jannah. That's called an infinite return. You understand? But that money, here's the amazing thing about Allah's generosity. When Allah gives back, He doesn't only give back in the next life. You actually will see that money in this life before the next. And that's a promise. And it's not my promise. That's a promise by Allah and His Messenger. The Prophet ﷺ said that no wealth is decreased by charity, by sadaqah. In fact, it is increased. Anyone want to grow their money? Give sadaqah. Want to grow your health? Give sadaqah. Want to grow your happiness? give sadaqah. Isn't that amazing? Now, why in Nisa Helpline? What are these people doing? I will tell you this. I work in a field where I meet a lot of women, and I hear a lot of stories. And I will tell you that just recently I was in the UK, I had a tour there, and I met a few women there, but I'll just tell you one very quick story. One of the women I met, actually met her daughter. She came up to me in tears. And she said, my mom has been in an abusive marriage for 26 years. And she has no way out. She has nothing. I said, you know what? Give me your mom's number. And I called her mom and I had a conversation with her. And I explained to her that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not put us on this earth to suffer. And that patience doesn't mean suffering silently. But here's the problem. There is a lack of resources. And that's why in this type of effort, it is incumbent upon every single one of us to support it. When you help another person in need, Allah will help you when you're in need. And that's a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll end it on this. The Prophet said that if you help anyone when they're in trouble, and you ease their difficulty, Allah will help you when you are in trouble. And will ease your difficulty. But get this, not just in this life, but when we're really, really gonna need it, on the day of judgment. Allah makes that promise. You help someone in this life when they're in trouble, and Allah will help you when you're standing in front of Him, and we're all gonna need the help then. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم إنه غفور رحيم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Yasmin. So to help you find your happiness, we're gonna bring Brother Fayaz Ja. It's for you. You are gonna find your happiness today.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Give me that. Come on. You already ate. Just kidding. I'm going to tell you the food is really good. They already fed me. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. Don't be upset. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Much better. How are you guys doing this evening?
Great.
Come on. There we go. Louder. Everybody, I'm going to walk around and just pick on people. How's that sound? Sound fun? Look at this table. I want to hear you guys make some noise. Come on. Louder! Woo! Sister, keep it down. I was just joking. I'm kidding. I'm joking. She was good. This table. Oh, I know this table. The troublemakers. Make some noise. Don't yell OGS. OGS! Ah, these guys. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Brother Fiyaz. And I'm not going to stand at that stage. Number one, because there's no way after Sister Yasmin Mujahid can I take that stage. Can we give a huge round of applause for our awesome keynote speaker? I don't know if you remember me from Seattle. It's driving you from the airport to the conference. It's the conference. Alhamdulillah. All right, don't worry. A brown Uber driver. So my name is Fiyaz, and I got to tell you guys a couple of things. Number one, I'm not a fundraiser. I actually am not, because I've never fundraised formally before. I mean, at OGS, they kind of tell me to stand up and yell at the parents because I know some of them are loaded and I just do that. But this is my first time coming out and actually imploring people to give out. And I don't think I could follow better from what Sister Yasmin Mujahid had reminded, but I've got a little bit to tell you. So I actually grew up here in Toronto, born and raised. I went to Isna Elementary. Some of you here? Yes! Aliyah, I'm just joking, don't relax. I get your sister, don't worry. And then Sumayya, we have some others. And Sheikh Abdullah Idris was my teacher, was our teacher. And you know Sheikh Abdullah Idris when he fundraises, right? Just boom, there's like $1 million that just flies out. Well, that's not me, so I gotta work a little bit harder. So I'm going to try my very best. But to do so, I gotta explain a couple of things to you. And the first thing is the following. Our goal is